Okay, so in this video we'll be looking at how you can check the size of an image that you have. So when we open up a document, we can come up to the File menu and choose Open. And then I'll just navigate to a document and hit Open down on the right hand side. And it opens the file up. So we have the file name listed up here in the tab. And to begin with, if I wanted to check the size of the document, I can also come down here and look at the overall document size. It's currently sitting at 65 megabytes, so I can assume that this is a pretty high resolution image. But if I did want to get an indication of the resolution and the physical size, so how many pixels or millimeters it is in width and height, then I can come up to my image menu up the top here. So I'll click on image and come down to image size. So within this image size window, I can see that over here on the right hand side, I'm getting this 65.1 megabyte image size listed there, as well as the overall dimensions. So it's 5,877 pixels by 3,872. So over here, we've also got the ability to change the units that we measure the size of this image. So at the moment we're in pixels, but I can, for example, change to millimeters to get an indication of how large this image would print if I was to just send it to the printer. And then I've got my resolution down here as well, telling me how many pixels there are per inch. Now 72 pixels per inch is a pretty standard resolution for any image that is taken with a digital device, whether that's a digital SLR or it could be just a phone. And this resolution is also standard for screens. So if we're creating work that's going to be presented on a screen, then 72 pixels per inch is a standard resolution. But for those of us that are working within a print environment, our resolution needs to be higher than that. So it needs to be 300 pixels per inch or more. So depending on what you're doing with the image, if you are taking the image into something like InDesign, you may end up scaling the image right down to get it to fit onto a page, which will essentially boost the resolution of the image. With this image that we're looking at, I'd like to check what the image size would be if I did reduce it so that it was set up at a resolution of 300 pixels per inch, so a print-friendly file. So what I can do is untick this resample button here, and you can see that when I do that, it now links the width and the height with the overall resolution. So I'm not going to resize the image in terms of add more pixels in. We'll see that the image will actually stay at 65 megabytes. All I'm going to do is play around with the way that these pixels are distributed within the image. So if I wanted to create a 300 pixels per inch image, I can select the resolution there and I'll just type in 300, and we can see that when I do that, it has changed the width and the height of this image, yet it hasn't changed the overall size. So it's still 65. So I haven't deleted or added any more pixels into the document. So this now gives me an indication of how large this image could potentially be printed at without any worry of it printing blurry or pixelated. So we're getting an image now that's almost 500 millimeters in width and 327 in height. So that's a pretty large size, so I'd be able to print that out on an A3 piece of paper without any problems, and it would look nice and sharp. Now, if I was going to use it just say on a website or for screen purposes, I can take it back to 72 pixels per inch. And now we can see the width and the height have increased significantly. Now, if I did want to resample the file, I can add even more pixels into the document by reticking resample. I could now come across and add the 300 pixels in here, and we can see that when I do that, I get this huge file, which I don't want to actually do, but this is called interpolation, when you add more pixels into an image. Usually you want to try and avoid doing that because it's best to always work from a high resolution image from the outset, but there are times when occasionally you may need to add more pixels into an image, but in this case I don't want to do that. There are some filters as well that will change the way that these pixels are added, and you might get a slightly different result when we swap between some of these filters when we're resampling. Now, I don't want to resample this file. I merely wanted to come in and just check the overall resolution and its width and height. So I'm just going to come down and cancel out of this window. When it comes to the overall size of the canvas, I can extend the canvas so I could give this image more width and height. Back underneath the image menu item and scrolling down to canvas size, and we can see from here that I've got the ability to add more width and height here. Let's just say I wanted this image to be 2000 millimeters in height. Then what I can do is come in here and type in my 2000 millimeters. And then we've got the option to decide where that height is going to be added. If I wanted to add it evenly to the top and bottom of the image, then I would leave the anchor set here. Otherwise, if I wanted to add the extra millimeters to the height of the document, I can click on this bottom center box here, and now we can see that the height is going to be added to the top of the image. At the bottom, I can then decide what type of color the extension of the canvas will be. I'll just choose white. All right, so now when I click OK on that, we can see that I've now increased the overall size of my image by adding some extra white to the top of the image. But I'll just undo that by doing my Control or Command Z and get back to my original canvas size. So that's a little bit about how we can go in and check the overall resolution and size of our photos before we start editing them. In the next video, we'll take a look at how you can actually set a document up to a specific size to begin with, and then add an image into that document. I'll see you in the next video.